The Friday Sports Riot on SportstownChicago.com.
This is the Friday Sports Riot. I'm Ryan Hoppy.
And I'm Ryan Stumbridge.
To call the show, it's not too hard. 630-403-5200. That's 630-403-5200. And on the phone line from WGN Radio at 87.7 The Game, we have Jordan Bernfield on. What's up, Jordan?
Not too much. How are you guys?
We are doing good. So how has everything been so far at 87.7 The Game?
No, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's always exciting when you have a new radio station to bring into the market, and I think everyone's working really hard on it, and it has been exciting just to hear all the new programming on it. So very fun to be a part of it. I feel lucky to be at the station, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it becomes.
Let's start off talking about some March Madness. How is your March Madness tournament looking so far as your bracket's concerned?
No, my bracket's doing terrible, but I do have my Final Four intact. I think the more that you know about the NCAA tournament, the worse you do in terms of your bracket. The evidence of this is that my girlfriend's bracket is considerably better than mine, and she doesn't follow college basketball. So the fact is that at least I have my Final Four, so I can save face in that way, but I did not predict a bunch of the upsets that we saw in the first couple of rounds.
And now, which team has surprised you the most, good or bad?
Well, I would say that certainly I didn't think that Dayton was going to go to the Elite Eight. It's certainly at the expense of my alma mater in Syracuse. I didn't like to see that, but I think they are a great story. I think Archie Miller's done an incredible job with that Flyers team. They're in the regional final for the first time in 30 years. You look at the pictures of that campus and how they have been able to rally around that basketball team. I think it's really exciting. In terms of the early round upsets, I didn't see Mercer beating Duke. I didn't think Duke was going to advance very deep in this tournament because I thought they relied too much on Jabari Parker, but I didn't see Mercer beating them. So I think it's been a fascinating NCAA tournament so far. It always is, but I definitely did not think that the Dayton Flyers would be going this far, but they have.
Do the Flyers have a good chance of going to the Final Four? Do you think that this that was the last game that they'll win?
Well, I mean, Florida is going to be really tough, and that's their next opponent, right? So we're talking about the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament, and I think that that's a team that can match Dayton's depth. You look at the way that Dayton played last night. They had 11 different guys dent the score sheet, which shows you how deep they are, but that's not really something that Florida can't handle. The Gators are one of the best teams in the country. I would argue they were the best team in the country this season. So I think it probably ends tomorrow. I think that they've had a wonderful run, but I think that the Florida Gators are going to be the national champion. And so I think that even if Dayton is not able to get past Florida, there's no harm in that. They lose to the best team in the country, and they had an incredible run.
And now what happened to teams like Creighton, Duke, Kansas, or even Syracuse as they got upset and didn't make it as far as some people thought? What happened to those teams?
Well, I mean, they just didn't play well. I mean, you look at a team like Kansas, I think without Joel Embiid, I think that certainly hurt Kansas, the fact that they didn't have the interior presence, the shot-changing presence of Embiid on the floor. Syracuse was not able to shoot the ball well in their game against Dayton. They didn't hit a three-point shot in the entire game. And you look at those two teams, I think that's why they weren't able to advance. I think some of the early round upsets, there's always pressure on the higher seeds to advance. And they're the ones expected to go deep in the tournament. I think sometimes you get a 12 seed, a 13 seed, a 14 seed. No one's expecting them to advance past the first round of the NCAA tournament, so they go in playing free and easy with nothing to lose, whereas some of the favored teams, some of the favorites, they're expected to go deep into the tournament. For Kansas to lose as early as they did, for Syracuse to lose as early as they did, that means that their seasons were failures. That's how it's viewed in those particular cities. Mm-hmm. So I think that when you see these early round upsets, it's usually because the higher seeded team, 12, 13, 14 seed, is able to execute really well. They're able to shoot the three often very well, and they're often able to take advantage of a seeded team that's expected to win that has too much pressure on them going in.
Do you think that a team like Wisconsin is for real this year? Do you think that they have a legitimate shot of having a shot at a title even?
Well, I mean, they're certainly legitimate, and they're certainly for real. I mean, they're in the Elite Eight. You can't be you're not a pretender anymore when you get to this level. And I think that the way they were able to play against Baylor, I mean, they crushed Baylor. And I think that certainly the Badgers not only may have an opportunity, but, they're only 2 wins away from playing in the national championship game. Mm-hmm. What impresses me about the Badgers this year, and when you look at Bo Ryan, and every year he's been there, they finished at least in the top 4 of the Big Ten Conference. They're a model of consistency. They have a great system that they run. But what impresses me about them this year is they're probably the most athletic team that he's had, and they can play a slow-down game or a fast-paced game. I think they proved that last night against Baylor, really running them out of the gym. So right now I think the Badgers are as tough as any team in the country, and when you have size like they do with Frank Kaminsky and Sam Decker underneath, they're a very tough team to beat, and I think that they're going to be a tough out in their next game.
Where does Bo Ryan rank all-time as a coach? Is he up there at all?
Well, I mean, certainly he's a great coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country, but in terms of all time, I'm not sure that I'm ready to put him there yet. They have not been to a Final Four under Bo Ryan, and I think if you want to be considered one of the all-time great coaches, you got to get your team to a Final Four. Now, if Wisconsin goes to the Final Four this year, if they advance to the national championship game, that certainly bodes well for Bo Ryan's resume. I think he's a great coach, but if we're going to have a discussion about all-time great, not sure I'm willing to go there yet until his team gets to the final weekend.
And now moving on to some baseball, what should Cub fans look for with this team this year?
Well, I think the prospects. If the prospects come up this year, I think if you see Javier Baez come up in June, which I anticipate he will, barring any injury concern, and Mike Olt made the team out of spring training, I think that's what you look for. I don't expect the Cubs to compete this year. I think this is going to be another tough year in the rebuilding effort, but we knew that this was a 3 to 5, maybe even 7-year process that Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer are looking at with the new collective bargaining agreement, and the fact that they've got to draft and develop players, it takes time. But I think with this year's team, it's do some of these prospects come to the major leagues, and what do they look like? Mike Olt may turn out to be Ron Santo. He may turn out to be Kevin Ory. We have no idea. But at least we're going to get to see the guy play every single day. And I think that when Javier Baez gets to the major leagues, it's going to be fascinating to see what he is. I don't know if either of these guys are the answer. They may be, they may not be, but at least we'll get to see what they look like when they get out there for the Cubs this season.
Looking at the Chicago White Sox, do you think that they have a chance to compete in this AL Central? And how do you think Jose Abreu is going to do with a lot of people thinking that they're already comparing him to guys like Frank Thomas and stuff?
Well, I think that it's certainly very premature to compare him to Frank Thomas. But,
right.
I think that Jose Abreu is a talented player. They brought him in on a lot of money out of Cuba, knowing what kind of player he could be. They certainly wanted to bolster an offense that was really weak last season. I don't expect the White Sox to be very good because, let's face it, guys, this is a 99-loss team last year. How much better they are, I don't think they've made a lot of moves to make them significantly better. Now, could they be improved? Certainly, but there are a lot of question marks going into the season. They have some young starting pitching options right now. I'd like to see how Eric Johnson looks in the rotation. How does John Danks respond after an injury? Does he come back pitching well, or does he not? Chris Sale we know is great, but after that, there's really it's all up in the air with this White Sox rotation, and offensively, like I mentioned, they've really struggled. I'd like to see if some of the kids come up for the White Sox this year, how they look. They certainly got younger in the offseason, which is a credit to Rick Hahn for making some shrewd moves. Adam Eaton is probably going to be a sort of a spark plug type player, but I don't expect the White Sox to be very good. No.
And now, where can people find your work online and on the radio?
Well, WGN Radio, 720 AM or 87.7 The Game, and either one of those websites, WGNradio.com or thegamechicago.com.
And thanks for coming on the show. We would love to have you on again.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Jordan. And that was Jordan Bernfield of 87.7 The Game and WGN Radio as he was on the Friday Sports Riot on the Illinois Center for Broadcasting hotline.
Yep.
The Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com.